let me ask the audience.
The assumption that women are naturally better caregivers is part of patriarchy.
I think they definitely do need me. I'm on my way.
What's up, freaks? Today we are in Santa Monica, California. I'm going to be asking people how they feel about the supposed news that Trump wanted a border moat filled with alligators and snakes, electrified fence. Personally, I think it's a good idea. I don't think anyone's going to come close to that thing to try to come illegally. I don't think it's realistic, but I think it's a good idea.
Now, for those who are not familiar, Border Wars, Inside Trump's Assault on Immigration is a book where two New York Times Washington correspondents provide a detailed, fact-based account of what precipitated some of this administration's more brazen assaults on immigration, filled with never-before-told stories of this key issue of Donald Trump's presidency. Now, the book was written by Julie Davis, who is a congressional editor at the New York Times, political analyst, CNN, and Michael D. Scheer, White House correspondent for the New York Times and CNN political analyst. Why haven't they put their pronouns in their Twitter bios? He, him, she, her, zim. Now, the book has garnered some good reviews, but some of them are negative, such as this one. Wholesale liberal garbage, but then it was written by New York Times columnists, So when you read this book, understand that you are reading a book by authors that are rabid America haters, who will not hesitate a second to support America's enemies, even if it means the destruction of a society that once put a man on the moon, a society that is so xenophobic that, as of last year, admitted as many immigrants, and that is just the legal ones, as the rest of the world put together. And, food for thought, just remember that the New York Times is a left-centre publication. And in it, the authors claim that Donald Trump wanted to build a moat along the southern border. USA Today writes, as a new book details his efforts to stop illegal immigration, President Donald Trump claimed Wednesday he did not propose lining the Mexican border with a moat filled with snakes and alligators. Now, the press is trying to sell the fact that I wanted a moat stuffed with alligators and snakes, with an electrified fence and sharp spikes on top at our southern border, Trump tweeted, misspelling the word moat. I may be tough on border security, but not that tough, the president added. The press has gone crazy. Fake news. Trump later sent out the same tweet with the correct spelling of moat, though he needlessly capitalized it. The book says, in addition to closing the entire southern border, Trump at one point suggested radical and even violent ways to stop illegal crossings, including the snake and alligator-filled moat, as well as shooting migrants in the legs. Privately, the president had often talked about fortifying a border wall with a water-filled trench, stocked with snakes and alligators, prompting aides to seek a cost estimate. According to the book Border Wars, Inside Trump's Assault on Immigration. Trump wanted the wall electrified, with spikes on top that could pierce human flesh, it adds. None of these ideas came to fruition, according to the book set to be published Tuesday. However, the Center for Immigration Studies writes, there is much to admire in Border Wars, Inside Trump's Assault on Immigration, the new book by New York Times reporters Julie Hirschfeld Davis and Michael D. Scheer. A review in the Times justifiably hails their work as so insightful in its investigative storytelling that it is essential reading for those searching for the beating heart of the Trump administration. Border Wars displays the sort of well-sourced reporting and smooth writing that makes the Times so valuable to national discourse. The backstory of Trump's fixation on building a border wall is just one of the author's many vivid tales of the incoherent, tumultuous immigration policy-making in the White House, commanded by our impetuous, obsessive, mercurial, erratic president. Unfortunately, Hirschfeld and Davis also provide ample evidence of the ideological bias and skewed moral sensibility that have long marred Times reporting on immigration. The fundamental problem is that the paper is staffed by reporters and editors steeped in the provincial cosmopolitanism of Manhattan's Upper West Side. In their world, inclusion and diversity are sacred values, and to believe is to see. The result is a moral community unable or simply unwilling to see that there are reasons both respectable and persuasive for wanting to stop illegal immigration and reduce legal immigration. Although there were some unsavoury characters on the restrictionist side of the debate, restrictionism is not fundamentally anti-immigrant. The restrictionists with whom I identify are like those who want to regulate Wall Street in order to make it healthy and well-ordered. In both instances, the idea is to save a powerful institution from its centrifugal tendencies towards destructive excess. But in the world of immigration enthusiasts, everyone knows knows in their heart that those who want to limit immigration are really nativists and xenophobes aligned with the KKK. The fundamental task of immigration policymakers is to decide how many immigrants our country should welcome and how to enforce the limits that are established. Hirschfield Davis and Scheer provide no insight into the background of the current immigration debate. They write blithely that Trump has disrupted many decades of bipartisan consensus in favour of immigrants and immigration. This simplistic formulation ignores the decades of intense debate that divided both parties. They say nothing, for example, about the turbulent and torturous 5-year gestation of the landmark Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986.
So anyway, let's see how people feel about it.
I'm not familiar with the entire process, considering that I was born here. So I guess I'm not the best one to answer the question on that one.
I don't even want bigoted people in the house. Well, I don't want witches in mine. So we're even.
Okay, so a few months ago, Trump supposedly had an idea about building a moat on the southern border with alligators and snakes and spikes on the top of the fence to prevent illegal immigration. So do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
I think it's a bad idea.
What do you think?
I think that's a horrible idea.
Okay, why is it a horrible idea? Why do you guys don't like it?
Because there's the chance that even if it's not an illegal immigrant, someone's going to get hurt because not all things are protected very well, and especially it's Trump's idea, so...
Well, she says someone. Technically, that's not true. If you are legally entering the United States, you can also apply for an immigrant visa, which means you wouldn't have to traverse the supposed moat. So that solves a lot of problems. Plus, Orange Man bad.
Okay, what about you? Why is it a bad idea?
Well, it sounds like we're turning the U.S. into some sort of fantasy castle.
Well, to be fair, Fantasy Castle seems like an appropriate choice of words given how you addressed.
Now trying to keep invaders out, but that's not what it is. You know, this country was founded on immigrants. Why are we trying to keep them out now?
Okay, well, the idea is to prevent illegal immigration. So you mentioned it's a bad idea because people would get hurt, right? Well, do you think a family with a mom and kids is going to actually try to cross a moat with alligators and snakes snapping at them? Do you think they would stay away from that?
No, because even if their situation's worse in the country they're from, they will still try to cross because there's the better idea of America and there's more things and opportunities and more rights that they would have than in their own country.
Again, then it's up to them to fill out the appropriate paperwork. An immigrant visa, for example. And in total fairness, if two parents are willing to sacrifice the lives of their 2 children swimming across a moat filled with alligator snakes and spears with pointy tips to pierce human flesh just to get to America, then they are really bad parents and have a complete disregard for their children's lives.
Right, so you think they would put their babies at risk when there's an alligator snapping at them in front of them to go into the moat? Or do you think they would turn around and try to come legally? Right, what do you think?
People don't leave their home country unless they have to. People will leave if their circumstances are so horrible that they have to face alligators, and I say, why don't we let them in? Because obviously it's not good for them to stay there.
Right, so what if, do you think there's a limit to the amount of people we should let in?
Personally, I don't think so. I think if people want to come into the country, I think we should make it easier for them to come into the country.
Personally, I think we should just open the borders to everyone and just, allow everyone in, because we all know that there are no consequences to uncontrolled immigration. The Washington Examiner states, there has been a 50% jump in illegal immigrant gang members coming into the United States this year, according to the former Border Patrol chief. What's more, he warned in Senate testimony Thursday, loopholes in federal law will result in some 650,000 illegal immigrants, more than the population of Wyoming, being released into the United States, where most will never to be heard from again. According to Mark Morgan, the chief of the US Border Patrol from 2016 to 2017, the border situation is at a crisis point. I am extremely concerned about the growing risks to our nation's public safety, national security and the rule of law due to illegal and uncontrolled immigration. The crisis extends well beyond a single border, from Central America through Mexico to our southern border and throughout every major metropolitan city in the United States, he told the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. Worse, he said that the US isn't sure of the background of those coming into the country, and often loses them. It's simple. They step 1 foot on American soil, say the magic words under credible fear, and within a few days they're allowed into cities all across the US. What should sound additional alarms of concern is that most of the family members either lack proper identifying documentation, or effective vetting of what they produce is impossible, so we know virtually nothing about who we're letting in. Once in, they are typically never to be heard from again. His grim testimony about the border crisis was endorsed by committee chairman Senator Ron Johnson, who blamed Congress and not the officials at the border. There is a humanitarian and national security crisis at our southern border. In the first 6 months of this fiscal year, Border Patrol apprehended over 175,000 family unit aliens and over 33,000 unaccompanied children. According to Secretary Nielsen, we are on track to reach 1 million apprehensions by the end of the year, the first time since the fiscal year 2006, said Johnson. Currently, 60 to 65% of those illegally entering today are families or minors. We know, because of our broken immigration laws and system, they will be released into the interior of the US. Therefore, as the apprehensions reach 1 million this year, the unconscionable result will be the release of 650,000 immigrants into the US. That is more than the entire population of Wyoming. Contrast that with the late 1990s, when we experienced 1 million apprehensions, yet we removed the overwhelming majority of those who crossed, Morgan testified.
Right. Well, the idea is not to stop people from coming in. We have a legal immigration process. So what's stopping them from doing that? I mean, don't you want to know who's coming in here and make sure they don't want to harm us and the kids they're coming with are actually theirs?
Well, it's so difficult for people to get into the country legally. That's why illegal immigration is happening. I think if we made it easier for people to come into the country, then maybe we would have less problems with it.
Right. Well, in California, it's easy, right? LA's a sanctuary state. They can come in pretty much and they don't get deported. They get benefits. So how much easier could we make it be?
I'm not familiar with the entire process, considering that I was born here. So I guess I'm not the best one to answer the question on that one.
No, I'm not the best person to answer that question, but I do still firmly believe that all borders should be open and that we should just welcome everyone into the country. But you know what helps in times like these? You know what helps? Oh, hi, how are you? You know what helps? Subscribing to this YouTube channel. Y'all are at home, isolating, y'all bored? Well, you can subscribe to this channel. Since I have subscribed, my vocabulary is greatly extended and I have the tools necessary to combat racism at every turn. Yes, I do. I just want to thank you for your time. And I'd like to end with this inspirational quote from my husband Billy from his time when he was in office. Sometimes, work can get real long and hard, and you know, when you're struggling for breath and when your mouth is full, you just gotta release your load and really swallow what life gives you. Love you, Billy.